Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done wonderful things. By his own power and holy strength, the Lord has won victory. The Lord announced that victory. He made saving power known to the nations. And he kept his promise to the people of Israel with loyalty and with constant love for them. And all the people have seen the victory of the God to whom we belong. So sing with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Praise God with songs and shouts of joy. Sing praises to the Lord and play music on the harps, blow trumpets and horns, and shout for joy to the Lord our King. Roar sea and every creature in you. Sing earth and all who live on you. Clap your hands, you rivers, you hills. Sing together with joy before the Lord, because he comes to rule the earth. He comes to rule the peoples of the world with justice and with fairness. Let us pray. Oh Lord, what a day it is, and we give you thanks for this sacred place, for the glory of creation, for the joy of multiple generations joining together for a time to be still, to reflect on who you call us to be, and as we gather for energy for the journey. Open our hearts, Lord, open our minds. We may be lifted up and inspired to be the people you call us to be this day and every day. Amen.
Well, in honor of Father's Day, which is next weekend, I thought I'd start celebrating the guys with a song called Boys Are So Sensitive. Boys are so sensitive, don't hurt their feelings, because if you do, it will set their souls reeling, but they will not tell you. They'll just try to hide it. Make a bad joke, and you try to decide if it's something you said, but no, they will deny it, 'cause boys are so sensitive, yeah. Girls react differently. They will start crying, say, why did you say that? There's no use in lying, but you can't apologize. Then it's all over. Quick summer storm, there's no need to take cover, but not so with boys. They are lingering bad weather, 'cause boys are so sensitive, yeah. Just like John Wayne and Marshall McDillon, their outsides are tough while their insides are killing them. Get them to talk, ooh, better not try it. Their face turns to stone and they get way too quiet. kind, because boys are forgiving, much more so than girls. And boys will still want you around in their world. They're thick-willed and thin-skinned, and you cannot change them, 'cause boys are so sensitive, yeah.
Say hello to the boys and the girls. See you near you. Thanks to Christina Trulio and her vocals. Along with her accompaniment, Ken and Elliot and Bob. Where's Bob? There's Bob. Cats and this morning we want to give a farewell and blessing to all those going on the high school work trip, the Habitat for Humanity work trip. We're heading up to the Wisconsin Dells. If you haven't been, there's no classier place on earth. Tom was telling me.
Gracious God, we have been called as your people to live our lives with eyes and hearts open to the needs of sisters and brothers. And in the week that is before us, over 30 people from this family of faith will be heading to Wisconsin to a Habitat for Humanity project. Lord, we thank you for their good work and for all they do to help provide homes for all people. We pray that it will be a safe trip. We pray that the young men and women in particular on this trip will be blessed with safety as well as a kind of openness that will help them put the pieces together and understand how it feels to serve you, how it feels to be a caregiver and a lover of others. Matters of race have always been really important to me, and I'm not really sure why. I grew up in Lily White, Glen Ellen, about 30 miles west of the city of Chicago. In my high school class, there were about 500 students, virtually no students of color, just 2 Asian students, and frankly, they fit the stereotype. Harvey Wan, my friend, was a brilliant student. His parents had the Chinese takeout in town. Joyce Goon was the other Asian student, and she was brilliant in the classroom as well, and her family had the hand laundry. And I have no idea why it is, but issues of race have always seemed to me to be really important, even as a child growing up. And that's why this past week, when I was in a breakfast conversation with a group of folks early one morning, and a particular issue came up that had caught my interest, and I ended up following up and reading about what was being said in the Boston Globe and the New York Times and other places. And I felt both interest as well as a bit disheartened. And here's what I'm talking about. The issue is separate graduations for people of color or particular interest in colleges and universities around the United States. So at Harvard University in Boston, there was a special graduation for people in the black community. The same at Illinois State, 2.5 hours to the south. At Columbia University, there was a special graduation for gay and lesbian and bi and transgender and queer people, a special graduation for blacks, for those in the Latino community, for those who have had family members who never graduated from college before, as well as those who are in the Latino community and Native American students. And I thought a lot about this past week. trying to get a handle on, is this good, is this bad, is it both? And what occurred to me is that the author John Nesbitt, whom you may have remembered the book Megatrends, is so popular, he also wrote a book called The Global Paradox. And in The Global Paradox, Nesbitt 25 years ago offered this prophecy. He said, you know, as the world gets increasingly global, people are getting more tribal. What he means by that, his sense, was that this globalization is difficult. It's not easy. There's so much change, so much going on, that it's the most natural thing in the world for us to take a step back and want to be with those others who look like us, who sound like us, and in many cases think and feel like us. And I thought about it relative to our church. And you know, if I weren't a white guy who grew up in really white Glen Ellen, if I were a person of color, I realized I may think about this very differently. And with due respect for the people who have celebrated and experienced great joy in those separate graduations, as I think about it relative to our church, all I can tell you is this, that as long as I'm at the helm of this church, our focus is never going to be that which separates us as human beings, be it skin color, be it life orientation, be it religious background, or how you do the God thing. That is never going to be what we're about. Instead, our focus, as long as I'm here, will be upon the common ground that we share with one another. And that's the idea behind this net gain to basketball game. If you get the church newsletter, you may have heard about it. You're going to be hearing about it in the news and other places in the weeks ahead. The common ground is high school students and it's basketball. But that allows us the chance to get together with people from the Austin neighborhood of Chicago, 26 miles to the south, where it is a bit of a war zone. And that's not overstating it at all. And it allows us to get together and be in the same place and not focus on what separates us, but to get to know each other beyond racial stereotypes or skin color. It's a fundraiser, and frankly, there's so many people that are enthusiastic about the project. We've pretty much already raised all the money that we need to support the Orr High School basketball program and their amazing coach for the next 3, if not 4 years. But what's as important as supporting this gentleman who's doing amazing work with these young men in the city, the chance for us to get together and get to know one another beyond label or beyond racial stereotype. And frankly, I can't wait to tell you next fall how things go when the 20 young men who are part of the JV and varsity basketball team go down to Orr High School, and they're all assigned a student, and they spend a day going to class at Orr and seeing how that's different than going to school at Lake Forest High School. So there's some cool things going on. Last thought. In his letter to the Corinthians, the Apostle Paul talks about the body of Christ and how there are many parts, but there's still one body. And it seems to me that in this day when people feel a need to take a step back and be tribal, if you will, to use Nesbitt's words, this church, for what it's worth, will be one place that's not going to focus on what divides us or what separates us or how different we are. What this church will always focus upon is the common ground we share. And the common ground we share. Amen. church is absolutely rooted in the Christian faith and tradition, but we also honor and respect and believe there's much to learn from other ways that people know and experience God. And so periodically we step outside our own tradition and into that another one, and that's what we do this morning. And so the words I share with you now come from the Buddhist tradition, the Four Noble Truths, and then we'll have a message that I've called, I don't know if Matt agrees with it, but the Four Noble Truths Unplugged. So these are the Four Noble Truths. Suffering exists. 2, suffering arises from attachment to desire. 3rd, suffering ceases when attachment to desire ceases. And 4th, freedom from suffering is possible by practicing the Eightfold Path. The Four Noble Truths. Our speaker today is a guy who's become a good friend. His name is Matthew Lahr. He's not like any of the high school teachers I had. He is at Lake Forest High School. He's probably taught some of your kids in the wellness program that he directs, and he absolutely is a gift to our church and community. Matt?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This talk is kind of 20 years in the making. 20 years ago, I was going to be a senior in high school when, through a whole different story that I won't talk about today, I had the opportunity of meeting a Zen Buddhist monk named Chungwa Sunim. At that time, I had, my sophomore year of high school, I had failed 3 classes. And when I transferred from Carmel High School to Lake Forest Academy, they made me repeat my sophomore year. I was obsessed with sports and socializing, and that was pretty much my existence. And I remember telling my parents I had no interest in going to college unless I could play basketball. I know my height gives it away that I was basketball. And so, by chance encounter, I run into Chungwa Sunim, who quickly became a good friend. And he was at he was a Korean Zen Buddhist monk. He was a part of the Zen Center down in Skokie. And I started going down and drinking tea with him. And he woke me up to the wonders of philosophy, East and West. We talked about religion. We talked about the Chicago Bulls. We went to the Pizza Hut lunch buffet, which he loved. And he also began to teach me the practice of mindfulness, which I've continued to practice to this day. And I brought him to school, to Lake Forest Academy, throughout my senior year. It was kind of my show and tell monk. And he would teach meditation, etc. They loved having him at Lake Forest Academy. At one point, he said to me, "You're really serious about this. I talked to the head teachers in Korea. You have an open invitation to go study in any monastery in Korea you want. You just got to get there." So I go home. I know where this is going. Mom, Dad, I'm not going to college. I'm going to live with Buddhist monks. My mom, this is an aside, my mom actually called Lake Forest Academy and asked them, unbeknownst to me, she called Lake Forest Academy and asked if I was exhibiting any abnormal behavior. I mean, more abnormal than what was normal for me at the time. Anyways, so that's a no-go. Not going to Korea. Fast forward to the beginning of my semester sophomore year at college. I'm a TA for a nature writing class. And we have just finished reading Into the Wild about Chris McCandless, who very much, he was like a Lake Forest kid, grew up in privilege, went to Emory, graduated with honors, got into Harvard Law, had anything and everything we would think would be desirable in front of him, burns his identification, doesn't tell his parents, hits the road, disappears. He's found 2.5 years later in a remote, it was a bust that the Alaskan State Forest would drop for moose hunters. He had starved to death. So the book is about How did he get from Emory to the bus in rural Alaska? And so we're done with the text, and the teacher says to the class, is Chris McCandless a hero, or is he crazy? Most of the kids in the class immediately, viscerally, he's nuts, he's a nut job. He's just one of these yahoos who goes out into the wild and doesn't make it. And she said, okay. She said, maybe you're all too afraid to admit that he had the courage to do something you're scared to do. Who's telling you to sit in this classroom right now? Who's telling you to live the life you're living? What's to stop you from living any of your dreams right now? If you were to get up and walk out the door, who's going to stop you? I hear this. And I'm like, okay. Finally, someone's talking my language. And that class ended. I kid you not. I went directly down to the registrar, and I said I'd like to withdraw from school. And the registrar, her name was Nancy T. She was a small liberal arts school. She goes, Matt, your parents know this? I'm like, yep. Dad. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to live with Buddhist monks. She kind of looked at me like, okay. So I won't talk about the conversation that I had with my dad about 20 minutes after that because of, well, yeah. But I came home and they made me work for everything, the ticket, all the money I needed, and I get to Korea. And I'm in the monastery. And this is the place that's going to solve all my problems and be wonderful, and I'm going to live in bliss, etc. And the first thing I wrote in my journal when I was there was I traveled 7,000 miles and my mind did not move. This was my first experiential encounter with the first noble truth. Life is dukkha. Wherever you go, there you are. The word dukkha has commonly been translated as suffering. Life is suffering. That's an unfortunate translation because it's more nuanced than that. And the Buddha is ultimately not pessimistic. You look at the etymology of dukkha, du means bad, ka means space. And the image commonly associated with this is a broken wheel axle that doesn't fit into a wheel. Life is bad space. Or, in layman's terms, life defies our expectations of it. And the more we hold on to our expectations, the more life is bad space. Second noble truth. This is rooted in grasping. And the Buddha gives three types of grasping. We want things that we don't get. It causes us to suffer. It causes bad space. We get things that we want, and then we're scared we're going to lose them. It causes bad space. And then the last, we get things that we don't want. And we know this the more we experience life. We get sick. People we love maybe don't love us back. All sorts of things happen. We want a job, we don't get it. We apply to a school, we don't get in. We get things we don't want. The third noble truth. It doesn't have to be this way. That to a certain extent, the suffering or angst in our lives is largely self-chosen. And this is a critical insight of Buddhism that's sometimes hard to embrace. Is that often our quality of life has to do with our choices, not everything around us that's outside of our control. And the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path, where the Buddha breaks down the different components of human life and tells us that we need to be mindful in every domain of our life, that there's no part of our lives that is so insignificant that it doesn't ask for our mindful attention. And it is this mindful attention that in 2010, Harvard did a study with about 2,200 subjects with an iPhone app. And they would text the participants who ranged in age from 18 to 88. And the first text would pop up randomly throughout the day. I can't remember what the period of time was. And it would say, are you present? And so they would immediately answer right away, yes or no. And then the next question was, rate your subjective well-being. What they found, I'm sure it's not surprising to you, is 47% of the time people were not present. And that when people are not present, how do they score on the subjective well-being measurement? Low. It's when we're paying attention to our lives that our lives stand forth with a vividness that we often think we lack. It just takes slowing down. And so let's do that for a couple minutes. Let's take time. We're in the ultimate setting to be mindful. Let's take a minute or two and just quietly be with our experience. There's no need to push any thoughts away. There's no need to be ahead of ourselves about what's coming next. There's no need to hold on to what is already done. Just simply notice your breath. Feel how your body softens with every exhalation. Notice the abundance of sounds and sensations, vivid and rich. This past year, as the well-being coordinator at Lake Forest, I have tried to initiate a couple different mindfulness initiatives at the school. And a part of that process has been engaging both faculty and students what you perceive as the biggest issue that impedes your health and well-being. Across the board, stress. Stress, anxiety, stress. In the sense that we're constantly going, redlining, and we don't have the tools to slow down and stop that redlining. And so kids especially, but even adults too, then turn to things to artificially slow down and relax. And as we all know, that can become self-destructive. And so in these different mindfulness pilots, I've been absolutely shocked to see how giving a 15-year-old boy, for example, 5 minutes to just be still, how transformative stillness and silence can be. Two features of experience that have almost gone extinct. Stillness and silence. And when we consciously put ourselves in the place of stillness and silence, we realize that maybe there's an abundance already present in our experience that we're too distracted and too busy to notice while we're chasing other things. I want to end with a poem very fitting for the theme of mindfulness, if I can get it out of my pocket. Mary Oliver, any Mary Oliver fans? Yeah. Mary Oliver is the poet of mindfulness and nature. It's called Why I Wake Early. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who bathe the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness, in kindness. Have a great Sunday.
I don't know about all of you, but I sure would like to have Matt come back again and join us sooner than later. Maybe he'll tell you what it's like to get yelled at by the chief monk when you sneak out of the monastery in the middle of the night to pizza in
You
town.
weren't supposed to mention
Oh,
it.
sorry. Right, we'll take a break and listen to a final song. We'll pass the hat.
Late afternoon, the sky begins to glow along the coast. The last of summer lovers go. you are there.
Friends, that in the week that is before us, a challenge. I dare you to take 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes. And claim this opportunity, as Matt says, is almost extinct in our world. This opportunity of silence. Dare to be still. Be in that moment and claim that peace. And the people said, Amen. Thank you.